Go ahead and check and see if we're live just yet. Hello everyone, this is Pilon, and this video is going to be a TTM how-to video. It's going to have 10 helpful tips as well as 5 mistakes that I made. So the video will be basically for everybody that's wanting to get into TTM, that is through the mail autographs, as well as anyone that's looking to maybe step up their game and avoid a few of the mistakes that I made. I want to shout out a couple channels first before I get started to Hank Rassicott. Thank you so much for the shout out that I got earlier. That channel will be listed in my channels to go check out, as well as Vintage Card Steve, Gum Stain Sports Cards, and the Autograph Fisherman John Burgess. Thank you to each of you. Hashtag Coffee with Guru and the card community. Thank you guys so much for your shout outs and for coming by the channel and the support that you've given me. I appreciate it greatly. I'll go ahead and get into these tips and tricks right now. So number one, if you guys are looking to get into the TTM autograph community, you want to send off some ball cards that you've got, or you want to send off a photo or something of that variety in order to be signed by someone, celebrity or a player, you want to sign up for Sports Card Forum under the TTM section. TTM stands for Through the Mail Autographs. And that's where you can find a list of addresses for the players or the people that you would like to have sign your memorabilia. You'll also need some stamps, number 2. So you're going to need some stamps. I recommend using three different envelopes that you'll need for your returns. The first is a self-stick envelope, the second is gum envelope, and the third is the long envelope. You'll need these in order to send off your memorabilia. I'm going to show you guys what those envelopes look like. So most of you in the TTM community will be familiar, but this is for anybody that's brand new to it. This will be your SAS or your self-addressed stamp envelope that you're going to put your name as well as the postage for it. If this gets a little thick, you'll want to add an additional postage on there, or you'll want to check with your post office to see if it needs an ounce stamp or if it needs different variation on it. If you're sending overseas or you're sending somewhere else, you'll also need to get a world stamp. Those are circular stamps. They run about $1 a piece. This is the not the self stick. This is the gummy envelope, and it has this that you would lick this yourself, or that the person's gonna lick that themselves in order to send it back. This is your self stick envelope. These are gonna be, you're gonna be addressing those to yourself when you send those off. This is your long envelope that you want to put those in. So you're going to need those three type of envelopes, and the reason that you'd want to have one of the older style envelopes, the ones that the player themselves lick, is because when the person is like in their late 80s, early 90s, or in their hundreds, sometimes they may not know what those self-stick envelopes are. They might not be familiar with them. So sometimes I've gotten those back, those self-stick envelopes back wide open, and the cards were missing from it. So that will be something that you'll want to avoid if you're sending off to an older player. Younger players tend to be more familiar with the self-stick envelopes, so those will be just fine for that purpose. And like I said, number 3 is you'll want to have your SAS on your envelope. That's your self-addressed stamp to get it postaged so you can get it back. And so when you're making it out to your person, you're going to put the player's name right there. Once you find out the address, then you're going to put your return over here, and as well as your postage. Now personally, I don't put my return address on there. I don't do that in my case, but I do it for I only do that when I'm doing it for like a friend or a family member. But that reason that I do it that way is because if the player is in a gripey mood, they might just give you an RTS, return to sender. If they've been signing all day for people, they might just feel like, you know what, I don't feel like signing for whoever this is, and they won't even open your envelope, and they'll just scribble out their address and put down return to sender, and you'll get it back. Whereas if you don't put your return address label on there, usually they'll open it up and they'll see if they're in a better mood, you know what I mean? If they're coming out there to the mailbox and they're like, okay, I don't feel like messing with autographs anymore today, I've done enough. They'll have that Sharpie, that same Sharpie in their hand that they're using to sign other cards with, but they'll send yours back. So that's what I'm saying. I avoid that by not putting my return address on those. Then tip number 4, you want to start by doing what I'm doing, which is a list, keeping track of what you sent out. and where it's going, the address that it goes to, how many you sent out. That way you don't accidentally send to the same person twice. That way you can also see whether that person sends everything back just fine or not. So this is the little list I've done. And then at the top, I've got Rich Hebner. I got his name checked off. It says I sent 4 cards to him. It says ×4, the address MA, and I put down a little note. He kept 2. So that way it helps me keep track of who got what, which address did I send it out to. Plus I know the date that I mailed everything off at, because I'll have the date on these cards, these little checklists that I do, with me, so I can see at what point did I send it off at. So that's that was all a part of number 3. Okay, so number 4. Oh, sorry about that. Got too close to the mic. Number 4 gets into your letter. All right, so what I'm using for my letters is this card stock. It's like index card stock. It's thick. And I put a nice cordial, nice letter in my own handwriting on it. So if you use printing, if you're printing out your letter, or you have your letterhead printed out, that could indicate to a player or to a person that's getting the thing, your autograph request, that could send a mixed signal to them, and they might think that you're just an autograph seeker that's going to put these on eBay, and that you don't really follow them or something like that. And so sometimes that'll make their tendency to sign your stuff less likely. So if you can, always write your letters out in hand. That way you can avoid that. I know that some of you guys might have, arthritis, or it might be hard for you to see, but a player isn't thinking all that. They're thinking that maybe there's a scam going on or something of that nature. So you really want to try to have a handwritten request for an autograph every time that you do that. And in those still cases, so that when you put it in, if you're using my idea, which is index card stock paper to write these on, a lot of the times the players will send these back with your cards because it feels like an index card. This is just a heavier card stock paper that you can get at the store, and you can cut them. Like I've cut 3 pieces out of 1 sheet to make my letter with. And you want to make your letter nice and cordial, sweet and to the point usually. So this is an example I have of Bob Aspromonte. I put in it, "Dear Bob Aspromonte, may I please have your autograph on my ball cards? Thank you so much greatly. Congrats on your 6 Grand Slams. You have such an amazing feat. I love your you did such an amazing feat, and I love your stats. Thank you so much." And then usually you can put your name on there, or you can also put in there a question if you have a question you might want to ask. So you could put down what's your favorite team, who's your favorite coach, or if you have a favorite teammate, if that's something that you would like to know from the player, so that they can answer those for you as well. And this is the custom card that I'm going to send off to Mr. Bob Aspromonte to have him have signed. And on it shows the 6 Grand Slams. So when I get this card completed, it will be a triple signature autograph card. All right, so that was number 4. Number 5 tip is, okay, definitely take notice of the addresses of the players and make sure that they're up to date before you send out to them. So some of the players' addresses will specify only send to my work address, or no longer send here because I'm sick, or no longer send here because that's my parents' house, or something of that nature. So always keep track of what the address is, where it's at, and what the instructions are. And like I said, the place that you'd be going to, you can go to Tiger, is it Star Tiger? That's a pay-for site for TTM, but I recommend Sports Card Forum. That's the one I'm using, and it's a free site. You just sign up for it, and then you can get busy finding out the addresses of your favorite player or celebrity or a different athlete, so that you can go ahead and get their autograph request out to them. And number 6, when you're keeping track of your people, I do, like I said earlier, I do recommend putting where the state or the address was additionally, because if they have like multiple addresses on it, you don't want to send it to the wrong one, and then it comes back and you say, okay, I didn't know that it was it was Bell Street instead of Elm Street. So you're gonna want to, you can make a little mark of that, like I have here on mine, where it says Doug Rebeck, and then it has his other address on it listed, so I know that I sent it off to address wise. Let's see where I'm at. Number 7, follow the directions in the form if the player wants a small donation. Hello, hello. I think OBS shut down temporarily, but I think I'm back. Hello, hello. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Hit it with a 1. Sorry about that. I think the net shut off temporarily and then it came back in again, I guess, with YouTube. So I was going over my tip number 8, which was hard to get autographs. Oh, thank you, Spidey. Appreciate you. So your number 8 tip for those very hard to get autographs, what I recommend, this is the technique that I use, is you require more effort to obtain them, right? So you have to put out additional effort to get those really, really hard autographs. We're not talking about the regular everyday autographs. We're talking like, like a Ricky Henderson or something like that. What I do with those is I send out a thank you card, a birthday card, or a Christmas card, and in those, always introduce yourself. So your introduction would read like this. Dear so-and-so, may I please have your autograph? And then introduce yourself directly after that with a I am a retired mom, or I am a stay-at-home dad, or I'm a nurse, or I'm a retired veteran. That way you're introducing yourself and giving an introduction to that person, because they're going to be more skeptical of wanting to sign for a stranger that they don't know of. It would be like if you go out to your mailbox and you got a letter in it and you open it up and it said, hey, you, sign this, and it was an index card in there, right? As you or I, if we got something like that, we would probably be hesitant to sign something like that, not knowing what that was or who you were or why you were asking impolitely. So with those very hard to come by autographs, those ones that the guys that you see usually don't have good success rate with, you want to go an extra mile for in order to, and it's not even going to be that all that big of a risk or difficulty to try to do something like that. Providing them with a thank you card or a card at Christmas time or a card at their birthday ahead of time, in order to get that single autograph, and that's always worked for me very, very well. But like I said, you want to introduce yourself. You want to say who you are, what you're doing, and then so your name, maybe your occupation, and what you're doing with the card, for example. So you would say, I'm keeping this for my grandkids, or this is a part of my collection. It's a keepsake, right? So that gets attention very good for those really, really hard to receive autographs out there. Number 9 is don't send anything you wouldn't regret being lost or stolen. So you wouldn't want to send off a Jim Mint 10, Mike Trout, or an Ohtani off to one of those guys and think you're going to get it back. For those guys, you might want to run the same technique as the hard to get thing, but you might want to send an extra or a common or something along that lines, because most likely you're not going to get those guys back, right? You could possibly get a Bo Jackson card back or one of these other cards that I'm mentioning by doing the additional techniques, but the likelihood goes down when they're really, really hard to get autographs or they're really busy guys, the big name guys. So you're going to have to think twice before you send anything off that you would regret being lost in the mail or stolen or kept by that player, because the players sometimes do keep their cards. They want extras, or they like the way your card looks and they keep it, or somebody in the office keeps it, etc. So don't ever send off anything that you would regret losing and never getting back again. That's tip number 9. Now tip number 10 is notice if the player has something to sign with, and then consider providing it for them. So for example, if you see a player has been signing with a dead Sharpie in that TTM forum, when you're looking through the sports card forum and you see everybody's getting back this dead Sharpie, can't hardly make out their signature with, you might want to consider sending them a pen or a Sharpie to sign with when you send off your letter. And also, I got back, and I could tell this story, guys, I got back a card that was signed in dry eraser. So of course it just rubbed off in the mail. When I pulled the card out, I could tell it was signed with a dry eraser, but it had rubbed itself off in the envelope. And other people, and I think even I have gotten this back, somebody signed with a crayon, somebody had signed with basically whatever they can get their hands on. So just be careful with that. If you notice it in the forum, if you notice it in the community that's what's been going on, just consider sending them out something to sign with that you would like to have signed with. Maybe you want red for your red to match your red colored their jersey or something if they play for the Reds or something. These run like 25 cents, 50 cents a piece. You can get them at the dollar store. You can get them at the different hobby shops and different places. You can use these to send them out, and this is what I use when I put my blue Sharpie inside of here usually, or whatever color ink I want to go along on my card. And this is for just in case those people don't seem to have anything to sign with. This goes for like your older players a lot of the time, and some of your newer players. So if you notice they didn't have anything, that's one of the little steps that I take in order to ensure that I'm getting something signed back instead of the dry eraser mistake. Some of my top 5 mistakes that I've made. So my first mistake up and my biggest mistake up was my Tony Kubik incident. So never assume a player will abide by their donation rules. Okay, so some players have these donation rules, and what I mean by that is go in there. So if a player says, okay, it's $5 per card, don't assume that you can send off, a whole ton of cards and give them like, okay, so let's say you sent off 5 cards and you included $25. Well, they might only sign 4 cards. You see what I'm saying? So what I did with this Tony Kubik incident was he had this donation rule up for $25 for the donation or for the charity of his choice. So I went ahead and I included way over that amount for my 4 cards that I wanted to have signed. Well, guess what? Only 1 card was signed out of that batch, so I learned my lesson there, and it was an expensive lesson. So when trying to do that, just consider that maybe the player is only really going to sign just 1 card or 2 cards, despite if they have some kind of $1 each rule or $5 each rule. You never know if a player is going to abide by their self-made donation rules. So don't expect that they're going to always abide by those rules. That's a mistake that I made, and I won't make that again. Number 2. I got this was a crazy thing I did. It was silly. I got too impersonal in my letter with the Ron Gant letter that I was writing out. Don't start your letter off being too unusual or not cordial enough. I started off by talking in my letter about the Braves game that I had watched the other day, instead of saying, "Dear sir, may I please have your autograph," like you typically want to start your letters with. That resulted in me not getting back those cards in the mail ever. So I've learned my lesson. I learned my lesson from that, and I will not go back. I will not start off my letter not having the standard cordial introduction and greeting ever again. Hey, angry old man in here, appreciate you. I watch your stuff all the time, and Arana boys, appreciate you too. I was in your great stream last night. Number 3. Some players hate to get custom cards, so if you're sending out to them, just watch in the forum if that's something that they don't like. This is a story that I sent off to Rich Rollins, and I didn't know that he hated custom cards because some players ask me if I can give them extra customs that I make, and some players appreciate that, and some will just keep the custom that I send them. And let me go ahead and show you an example of a custom card that I did. This is Ken Aspromonte and his brother Bob, and so I'm going to be sending this out to get this autographed. Hey, Vintage Card Steve in here, good to see you. I gave you a shout out as well at the start of the video. So sending these out, sometimes what a player will do is they're going to go ahead and keep these. So if you do wind up sending out cards, many of these players are collectors of their own cards, or they haven't seen these kind of cards before, and they'll try to keep them. And my mistake with the Rich Rollins was I didn't understand that he did not like custom cards. So when I sent him his card to be signed, he actually took a lighter to it and he burnt up the card and sent it back to me all burnt up. So I guess he was really fed up that I had made a custom card of him, and he might think that maybe it's a scam or something like that. But that some of these players think they're aggravated that they didn't make as much as the guys that we have out right now. So their thinking is off on what's going on here. We're just keeping this for a keepsake. This is my own personal collection. I PC this stuff. I love guys from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, my vintage players. But check the forums and see if that's something they like or do not like. And now Rich Rollins has a policy where he wants either $5 or $20 a card or something like that. I'm not sure what it was, but it upset him that I sent him a custom card. So they can be finicky like that. So watch what you're sending out there as well. And like I said, some cards that you send out there, if you send out a duplicate, those could be kept by the player. Be careful. So be careful. Like I said earlier with my top number 8 tip, I believe it was, some things will be kept. So if you send out a duplicate card, expect that card might not be coming back. The player might keep that thinking and that's a gift to them. Check and see if the player wants a gift of cards, and then send those duplicates to them if that's what you want to do. If you needed both of those signed, hold off maybe a month or two or longer, and then resend it. You don't want to keep going back to the well over and over again with the player and saying, hey, I need this, may I please have a signature on this, and this, and it gets overwhelming for them, and then they want to cut it off. You know what I'm saying? So just be careful with that, guys. And I have a player, Bob Kelly, an old-time player from the 1950s. I sent him 3 different custom cards to be signed because he only has one card that says 1952 tops. And he kept all 3 cards, but he sent me back a signed index card. So I noticed that, and I said, okay, he likes the cards that I had made. So what I did the second time around was I said, here, Mr. Kelly, these are all for you. And I made him six cards of those customs. And I said, I would just like you to sign my 1952 tops only, and you can keep all these customs. And that's what he did. He went ahead and signed it instead of, doing an index card only for me. And in addition, he signed 3 customs and kept the other 3. So that worked out great. So that's an idea too if you guys are getting into these programs or apps like Rookies for making your own customs, or if you're good at Photoshop. Now if you want to print them out on your computer, you can. There's cardstock, index cardstock that you could use to make your own baseball cards at home, or you could use Staples, one or the other, or that Rookies app that's good for Apple. Let's see what guys said. That's my favorite realm, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, Jay. Cool. Vintage cards, Steve. Appreciate it. Great Desert Storm autos. Thank you. See Spidey, Ed, Steve. Great group of guys in here. And always use the right postage. So I accidentally sent off a letter once with the wrong postage, and I got it back. And that was from Charlie Huff, and that was an early mistake that I had made. When I had sent off a envelope, and it got a little bit thicker than I thought it was. So always make sure that you have the right postage on there. If you guys have any questions, comments, drop them in the chat, and I'll be able to answer them. I think I got through the top 10 tips and tricks fairly well. I'm not sure if I forgot anything, but you guys could remind me if there's anything out there that you think I should add to that. After this how-to video, probably a little bit later, I'll go ahead and show what I got on Saturday from my TTM, so you guys can see that. TTMs are pretty cool. I'm not familiar with doing them. Yeah, Vintage Card Steve, if you ever want to get into just trying one of them, follow this how-to video that I laid out, and it'll get you where you want to go. If you want to get back something signed, if you have a particular good player that you like, that you enjoyed, and you really wanted their autograph in the mail, then doing a TTM is a great way to go about doing it. Just following those tips, I think, that I laid out is going to be pretty helpful for anyone that's just starting, or maybe someone that's been doing it for a while. That's a good idea too. Angry Old Man says, I always let the post office put the postage on both the sending and return envelopes. So if its weight is a little bit heavier, you want to make sure you have that over the ounce and that kind of thing. So usually at the home. I think we're back. The net keeps on going out. So this will be the envelope that they go in, along with this one, and all together that's just going to be 25. I'm thinking a long time ago. Say that's a simple stamp on the corners, a simple stamp on the SAS and on the to go, and that should suffice. If you get a little bit, if you think you're envelopes are a little bit heavier, you definitely want to do what Angry Old Man said. You want to take them to the post office, get them weighed, and then send them out that way. Yeah, the OBS today just keeps on starting and stopping for some reason. It just keeps, the signal keeps going back and forth. And I'm gonna run another TTM episode number. It should be 6 or 7 today, I think it is. So I appreciate everyone for coming through, and thank you guys so much for being in here and for your great ideas and any of your input. For those of you guys watching the replay, if you want to put anything in there that you do differently, there's a lot of good ideas out there for getting started with your TTM, or an advanced tip or trick for helping you out. So I appreciate everyone for coming. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a good day. I will be back probably in 30 minutes or so. I'll see you guys later.